In the age of social media, you might automatically think that her life is just perfect. Surely her lot is better than mine. But it's not at all what it might look like. What does being blessed look like? Is it a view from the mountaintop? Can it be found in a dark valley? Is God good only when life is smooth sailing? I've heard hundreds of stories, but I've never heard one like this. Michelle and her dad, Jay Schaefer, have always been close.
I was not much more than a child myself when she was born. So it was almost like we were kind of growing up together.
Jay was just 20 years old when he and his girlfriend got pregnant. Christine, known as Chris, was only 17.
My life was passing before me. I thought, what am I gonna do? My mom literally rocketed out of that couch, just sobbing. My dad's trying to console my mom, and I said, I'm sorry. And so we talked about it, and they suggested that we consider an abortion. Even though I was not a practicing Christian at the time, I had this instinct that that was a living person in there, and I couldn't see aborting the baby. And so, against my parents' better judgment, we got married.
His parents, especially his mom, don't look like they're celebrating. Michelle was born in 1970. 18 months later, her sister Beth came along.
I just had no idea how to manage a home or deal with finances or how to take care of a family. I was just so over my head.
Jay kept pursuing his passions, weightlifting and music. In 1972, he started a band with his wife Chris, his brother Craig, and a couple of friends.
Michelle's mom actually had a really nice voice and had a natural stage presence.
They tried to make a living at it, but it was difficult, especially as parents.
We would go to Duff's Buffet in the Miracle Lane Shopping Center, and we'd eat once a day. At the time, for like $2.35 a person, you could eat until you couldn't. Oftentimes when we were rehearsing, they would have to come to these bars or clubs with us. Because of the weird hours when we were actually playing a job, we might not get in till 3 or 4 in the morning, so we would have to take them to a babysitter. It was a hard life, really.
One Sunday morning, after playing his late-night gig, Jay happened to see a program called It Is Written. It wasn't his style, but for some reason, it caught his attention.
A young man had decided to be a missionary, but his father wanted him to join his corporation. He tried to reason with him. "Don't you want to make a mark on the world?" the father asked. Son replied, "Which world, Father?"
When he came to do a seminar in Dayton, I just had to go.
Jay began visiting a local church with his girls, but his wife wasn't interested yet. And there was tension. Chris didn't like to practice, just like she didn't like cleaning their home. And then there were animals, lots of them.
Every single room in the house had animals in it.
Michelle walks by her childhood home near Dayton, Ohio. It was only 1,200 square feet.
My bedroom had fish and I had hamsters. Another room would have snakes, gerbils, birds. I remember having hermit crab races down the middle of the hallway.
I can't tell you how many dogs we had over a period of 20 years.
We had dogs always everywhere.
Tons of them all the time. We did have other animals too. We couldn't be happy with just 15 dogs, so we had a garage
full of guinea pigs, 3 rows stacked.
With 100 guinea pigs. I didn't have any say in most of this. She would come home with these things.
She bred and showed fish, guinea pigs, of course the dogs, the cats. She was always traveling all over the country to these different shows.
While Chris spent money to care for and show the animals, food was often scarce at home.
Not having enough food seemed pretty common. The refrigerator just being bare a lot. And I remember we had some brown rice for a while that just kept getting bugs in it. And so you just scoop the bugs off the top and you keep going. I remember Beth and I eating dog food or dog treats sometimes. Because I didn't feel that from my mom that I was wanted, I felt very much like I was a mistake. When you feel second best to an animal, that really does something to your self-esteem. There was just always animals everywhere. That means there's a lot of feces, stepping in a puddle of urine and dust and dirt that just comes with that. And because my mom also didn't like to clean, it was disgusting. We did not ever have company in our house because my dad was so embarrassed. And as I became older, I became very embarrassed too.
Even though my parents, my mom especially, had hoped for an abortion, once Michelle was here, they just fell in love with her. They would oftentimes go there and spend some time with Grandma and Grandpa.
At my grandparents' house, it was clean. We always had enough food.
My mom used to love to buy them dresses and stuff for Easter, and it became a place where I think Michelle and Beth could get away from some of the turmoil that was going on at our house.
My grandparents ended up being some of my biggest cheerleaders. They paid for my gymnastics lessons.
She started when she was just 5 years old and began competing a few years later.
A skill that's foundational for a gymnast is learning a glide kip on the bars. And it's also very difficult to learn. I remember doing drills and drills and drills. When I made that skill for the first time, I was beyond excited. The same with learning my standing back tuck.
At age 10, Michelle's school paper titled "Gymnastics is for Me" indicates hard work, 15 hours of training per week. That year, she finished 7th all around in the state competition. But she was hungry for more. So she worked even harder at the gym, up to 25 hours per week. While keeping her grades up and helping to care for her new baby brother, Casey.
I learned in gymnastics that through perseverance, grit, hard work, discipline, I could accomplish the goals that I set out as long as I did X, Y, and Z.
The very next year, against 200 competitors, she won first all around and the state championship.
I don't think I fully grasped how big the competition was and everything. I just remember, hey, I did my best and I won. Yay.
This news article describes her as effervescent and a real showman. A second article included her home address, which back then was typical in local news reporting. Phone books also included home addresses with phone numbers. Shortly after this article was published, the phone rang when her parents weren't home. 11-year-old Michelle answered. She was with her sister, Beth.
A sexual perpetrator told me
I've kidnapped your parents.
that he had a gun to my dad's head if I didn't do what he said.
And then he had them touch each other in inappropriate places. And it was horrifying for them. Not only were they doing something that was so repulsive to them, but they were afraid their parents were going to end up being killed. So they were traumatized.
The criminal was never caught. This left a scar on Michelle that later in life would be ripped open.
People don't realize, if you're not around the world of gymnastics, some of these exercises are close to suicidal in some ways. They're just so dangerous. If you miss, you can do some serious damage to yourself, if not kill yourself. We all took a trip up to watch Michelle compete.
Michelle's grandfather took these pictures on that fateful day.
Even in warm-ups, I was feeling really uncomfortable. My coach wasn't there. I think the assistant coach set my bar settings wrong.
The way they fly around and have to grab that bar, they need to know they're in the same place. So she gets into her routine.
There was a flip between the bars.
And went to grab one of the bars, and it wasn't there, and she fell flat on her back.
I was knocked unconscious.
She took a hard fall. She just laid there. I mean, you could hear a pin drop in the place. Everybody's just like...
Paramedics put her on a backboard, secured her neck, and took her to a local hospital. Michelle was diagnosed with a concussion, whiplash, and a sprained back.
It was absolutely scary.
When I went back into the gym after that experience, my coach, first thing he did was get back on those bars. And it took me a couple weeks. He was not going to let me give up. And so I finally did it. If I had not pushed through, I would always have that fear in the back of my mind. There are a lot of experiences I've just had to push through.
Michelle went on to compete at the Class 1 level, which at that time was just below the elite Olympics level. At age 14, she won second all around at a multi-state competition. At this point, Jay wondered if Michelle could live in a place where a big-name coach could help her train for the Olympics.
I mean, she was tracking that way. She had the talent, she had the skill, she had the drive. She had pretty much all the factors that need to come together for you to be able to succeed. She just didn't have parents with money. That was the one drawback.
Jay sometimes worked 2 jobs to help provide for the family. And his wife, Chris, finally joined him in Bible studies at a local church that loves Jesus and keeps the commandments, including the Bible Sabbath, the 7th day of the week. They were baptized and became members of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Though Jay remained serious about his new faith, Chris's commitment was short-lived.
As I started following and pursuing this spiritual interest, Michelle's mom, Chris, got very upset. She felt threatened, I think, because she liked me when I was the old Jay. I had stopped playing music because I couldn't rationalize being in bars and nightclubs and promoting alcohol and all that.
Michelle was also attending church with Jay and studied the Bible. She soon faced a life-changing decision.
The competitions always happened over the weekend, and they were on Saturday and Sunday.
So she would have had to compete on Sabbath, and she chose not to.
In 1985, a journal entry states that she won 3 golds and a bronze in a state qualifier. Then at the bottom, after 9 years of hard work, she adds a simple P.S. I quit gymnastics.
I take the 10 Commandments and the 4th commandment literally when it says that the 7th day is the Sabbath. I loved God so much that giving up 5 minutes of fame didn't seem that hard of a decision.
Michelle was baptized not long after her parents.
And then her sister was influenced by that, Beth, and she did the same thing.
For my coach and for my mom, they couldn't wrap their brains around it. I felt like she held that against me. It was another thing that she held against me.
JJ was Michelle's childhood friend. She remembers the ways Chris often treated Michelle.
She would say snarky comments, zingers, those words that are meant to hurt. Kind of like, oh yeah, you're so perfect. You do you take care of everything. You're talking to a 14, 15-year-old child. Because that's what she was. She was a child. Michelle was the responsible one, the oldest of 4 kids, with a mom who wasn't doing those things that most moms do. And so Michelle took on that role to mother the other 3 children.
In my teenage years, I became the parent.
Was Chris jealous of her? Absolutely.
The fact that Michelle did things right irked her.
I remember her writing me a letter that said that I was her mom. And she would even sometimes call me her mommy. For a young person that's struggling with identity and you're wanting the approval of your mom and you're wanting your mom to be a mom, that was extremely hard and confusing and awkward at best. I learned not to have emotions because when you did, she would weaponize them. She would use them against you.
I mean, she's physically not touching her, but emotionally and psychologically, the words that she's saying to her.
And I was at that age where I wanted to look beautiful. I didn't have the body that everyone else had, like in the movies and in the magazines. I looked more like a bodybuilder. So some body image issues, and then with wanting to get the approval and just attention of my mom, I just decided I was going to stop eating, which is really not a good decision because it only hurt myself.
And I knew she was losing weight, but somehow it never clicked that it was as serious as it was.
Michelle dropped 40 pounds in just a few months. She weighed only 95 pounds. This picture with her siblings shows her thin frame and face. Sister Beth gave Michelle a school picture with a very specific plea on the back. You're the best sister in the world, skinniest too. Gain some weight, please. It wasn't just her family. Her doctor noticed too.
And I remember going to the doctor, and I went back to his exam room. I remember him just saying it loud, is there an eating disorder at play here? If you do not gain weight, I mean, you'd be put in a hospital. That's what's gonna happen. Because when you lose that type of weight, you often, as a woman, stop menstruating because your body's all out of whack. And I'm pretty sure she was at that level.
I thought, okay, I've got to gain some weight.
Michelle's prayer journal shows this urgent request. Please help me, especially this anorexia thing. Help me to eat and not feel guilty.
And so when I started to eat, then I couldn't stop. That started me on another journey of then bulimia.
6 weeks later, she cried out, please help me when I feel like going on my binges. I get this terrible craving that doesn't go away.
It becomes so invasive and intrusive in every single thought that you have. I did start to go to therapy, and that helped. But it wasn't until I had binged one night so bad. I was so sick. I was so sick I would rather have died. And I remember being by the toilet on the bathroom floor and just crying out to God that I'm done. You have to help me. I don't see a way out. And he met me there. Yeah, he met me at the bottom.
Michelle's eating disorder battle lasted 2 years. Meanwhile, she discovered a new sport that would play a powerful healing role in her journey. With financial assistance, Michelle was able to attend a private Christian high school, Spring Valley Academy. There she learned about acrobatic gymnastics, or Acrosports, which originated in Eastern Europe and later took off in the United States.
So at this school, there was a coach there that did Acrosports, which is kind of a combination of gymnastics and cheerleading. It's gymnastics, but with partners. And they also had a power tumbling floor. And so I was so excited because I got to do the things that I loved.
The coach himself also competed as an athlete, and he knew talent when he saw it.
To actually meet somebody that had gone through a really strong program, and you find out really quick how competitive she was. And when I remember going out to the ball field, she was doing backflips out on the ball field. I had never really coached a girl up to that level. That was kind of cool and everything. I said, man, if I have a chance to get this girl to Spring Valley, man, I'll make my name big because, you know, she's so good.
But her time at the school would be cut short.
At the end of that quarter, my dad and mom had a conversation about whether I would continue going to that school or not. And it didn't matter what I did, what I said. She literally got down on the floor, rolled around on the floor.
She threw a complete conniption fit, kicking and screaming and crying because she didn't want Michelle to go to that school. And I could kick myself for being such an idiot, but I acquiesced to keep peace.
And I just remember bawling and crying so hard that my nose was just gushing blood.
After Michelle graduated from public high school, Coach Schwartz invited her to join their team and compete nationally.
The competitions weren't on Sabbath, and so I was able to participate in them.
In 1990, Michelle and sister Beth competed in the Acrosports Nationals, and they won. But this sister pair wasn't the coach's idea.
They came to me and said, we want to work together. And so I said, fine, but don't expect to win.
Beth and I were very similar in size and weight, and that makes it more difficult to do the more advanced skills. Because we had that gymnastics background that gave us an edge, I think.
What I didn't factor into was both of them danced well, both could move well. They connected on the mat.
And we were very clean. We had a lot of good technique.
And I'm sitting there, someone applauding them as they're getting their medals, and Michelle looks straight at me, just like, yep, you thought, this, look at me.
I don't think he ever doubted me after that.
That same year, Michelle married Darren, a longtime friend and fellow gymnast. She was just 20 years old. Her parents had recently divorced, and Jay later married Ruth. Michelle went on to win 7 national championships in power tumbling, pairs, and trio competitions. In 1997, Michelle and Darren opened the Hand-to-Hand Acrobatic Training Center. At that time, it was the only one of its kind in the state of Ohio. Michelle's father, Jay, and Coach Schwartz helped to get the gym ready for the grand opening.
I've always wanted to help the sport grow any way I could. You see someone who has passion, you want to do anything you can to encourage that passion. And I know she helped me. We're national champions, Spring Valley Acro, you can look it up. It was because of her tumbling pass.
It wasn't just a business. She had always dreamed of being a coach.
Gymnastics gave me so much in life. It gave me confidence. It taught me how to persevere. It helped me to be strong. And so I wanted my gym to do all those things for young people as well. It was payment enough for me just to see when I would see the light bulb go off in one of my athletes when they would get that skill that they had been working so hard on, celebrating with them. To be a part of that journey for someone feels like such an honor. So we had hundreds of clients, and we had built it up with God's help.
This is Hand-to-Hand Acrobatic Training Center. This is our pro shop and only good snacks. There's the bathroom, and then this is our office manager, Casey.
Michelle also got help from her brother Casey, who helped in the office for about 2 years.
I remember the first team, the first acro team that they had, being able to help coach some.
After that, her youngest brother Kurt stepped in and helped for more than 6 years.
My official job was office manager. I dealt with the schedules and answer the phones. She expected me to work and do well. And most of the time I did, but sometimes, she would let me know that I needed to step up my game or get off the trampoline and answer the phone.
I was able to continue to support and be a part of my younger brother's lives, and that was awesome.
What I remember early on from working with her was her leadership and her work ethic. She would hold employee meetings. It was very Christ-centered. I mean, everything from the logo to the name, she would always start there.
And then we had a competitive team that we were then able to hire a head coach he was a world champion from Ukraine, to help us so that I could actually have my son and not have as many responsibilities so I could raise my children. And also my daughter, she was starting to compete and I wanted to make sure that she knew I was her mom first and foremost.
Michelle and Darren were interviewed for a Christian magazine where they shared how they managed the gym as a ministry, including being closed on the Sabbath, often the busiest day in the industry. One weekend, Michelle went camping with her family and had a medical emergency.
I had a very high fever, I was shivering, and I couldn't stand up.
She wound up in the emergency room.
I remember being really scared. I was very uncomfortable.
So we're going to need to give you some blood.
I didn't know anything medical at that point, and so I was really scared. That was my first blood transfusion. My hemoglobin was at a 6, which normal is 12 and over, so I was really low. I spent a week in the hospital, and they ran a lot of tests on me, CAT scans, MRIs. So many blood tests, and that's when they went ahead and said, we think you have HHT, which is hereditary hemorrhagic telangiectasia.
HHT is a genetic disorder that leads to malformed blood vessels that can easily bleed. The most common symptom is frequent nosebleeds, and it can also cause serious complications in various organs. It's a rare disease, but it's also underdiagnosed. Many people have it without knowing.
I'd had a lifetime of nosebleeds. When I was pregnant with my first child, my daughter, they got really, really bad, and my nose was having to be cauterized, and I was struggling, but we didn't know why.
Jay didn't know that he also had HHT.
My father had HHT, which he had inherited from his father. I had no idea that I had it because I never showed symptoms at that age. Generally, you don't expect people with that to show symptoms till they're in their 50s or 60s.
I remember I just couldn't imagine having to go through all that. But yeah, I remember those nosebleeds.
Lyndi is an internal medicine doctor, and her husband Brian is a cardiologist. They're both longtime friends of the Schaefer family.
It was really a great family. And we had Bible studies at their house on Friday evenings, and that was always fun. I knew that it would be a long haul and that she'd have many things ahead of her. In fact, that she would have even these kinds of AV malformations in other organ systems.
I think the biggest thing we were worried about is that this could lead to very serious bleeding at any time. Bowel bleeding, but also there's a risk of aneurysms and problems in the brain. And
the biggest one that I was always concerned about was what if they happened in her brain?
I found out that I had 2 brain AVMs, which are arterial venous malformations. And when that happens, like if a hose got tangled up, the pressure can be very dangerous. It's during childbirth that a lot of women actually have AVMs burst because of the pressure.
It's not uncommon for HHT patients to have brain. They're like aneurysms.
To know that I had those in my brain while I had 2 very difficult births.
Push hard, push hard, push. Go again. Push.
I felt very much that God had his hand over my head. Not even a year after that incident in the ER, I ended up having my first brain surgery.
In 2003, Michelle's doctor sent her to a world-renowned neurosurgeon he had trained under in Phoenix, Arizona, Dr. Robert Spetzler.
Very daunting. It was definitely terrifying. Would I be the same mom after the surgery? You know, would I have any deficits?
Michelle's father, Jay, and her stepmom, Ruth, made the trip to Phoenix.
That's always terrifying to think about that your kid's going to have brain surgery.
They had to open up my skull, take a big chunk of my skull out to get the AVM out. And then they put the skull back, and then they put titanium little plates around where they took the bone out. I had a scar running from here to here.
Michelle flew home and began the journey of living with a chronic disease. She would have daily nosebleeds, over 20 blood transfusions, and many more health challenges ahead. In 2006, after a year of paperwork, Michelle and Darren went to Russia and adopted 2 boys from an orphanage there, Collin and Luke.
It's just something that I felt God put on my heart, because maybe this is partly because of my own beginnings and story. There are so many children that are brought into this world that don't have a choice and are left to fend for themselves. And I wanted to give those children a chance and to love them.
Collin is one of the 2 brothers that Michelle adopted from Russia. He's now in his 20s.
You always wonder what life could have been like. An opportunity so many kids don't get anymore, especially to come from Russia to America. It's just a gratitude, I guess. That's really just the bottom line.
They're my children, and they're a part of our lives. And it was really cool because my biological children, it was never a question. Those are their brothers.
Michelle's mom, Chris, enjoyed the instant expansion of grandkids with Collin and Luke, but her celebration was short-lived. In 2008, after a long bout with breast cancer, she passed away. She was only 56. Michelle credits her mom with kindling in her young mind 2 loves. One was a passion for books and reading, and the other for nature. Chris's animal hoarding behavior is now recognized as a mental health disorder related to obsessive-compulsive tendencies and early childhood trauma. Her father died when she was just 9 years old.
She found a lot of solace in animals, and then she was like emotionally stunted there. Before she passed away, we had a really good, deep talk, and I was able to verbalize some of the things that had been in my heart, and I was able to be authentic and genuine and honest with her, and she was able to receive it at that point. And we had some reconciliation, and that meant the world to me. And I think I'm going to see her again in heaven, and I'm really excited about that.
Family owned and operated since 1997, Hand to Hand Acrobatic Training Center is a facility for tumbling, trampoline,
Meanwhile, Michelle and Darren became widely known through their acrobatics training center and through interviews where they shared the challenges and blessings of their adoption journey. But Michelle was about to get the gut punch of her life.
I got a text from my husband, and it said, "I'm sorry, I have ruined your life." He had been arrested. He had molested a young child.
Michelle immediately stopped Darren from working at the gym, and for several months she didn't tell anyone while the court proceedings continued. Then one day, her longtime friends Brian and Lyndi Schwartz noticed.
You know, we've known Darren and Michelle for forever, it felt like.
They seem like a sweet, warm, happy family, and we'd been just noticing that Michelle was a little bit withdrawn but didn't really know why.
I said, "Michelle, something's wrong," and she said yes.
Michelle went alone to Brian and Lindy's home.
I remember like it was yesterday. She came down the driveway, she came to the house, and she said, "Get on the computer."
When we went upstairs, opened it up, and saw the arrest record and the court records, she was at this point just lying on the floor, sobbing, inconsolable, and there's no words at that point. I can just remember we put our arms around her, we just said, "Oh, we're so sorry, and we probably sat there for at least 30 minutes or maybe even an hour. Just imagine being a mom, just suddenly discovering that your husband's been likely into pornography and now abusing children, wondering if it's possible he's abused your own children, not able to sleep at night because you've got to stay awake to protect your children, and trying to keep everything together and pretend that it's all okay."
I've talked to you. How did you not tell me? How did I not know? And I remember her saying, "Because I'm an award-winning actress." And I was like, good point. The depth of that valley you're in that is so low, you're an actress because even to the people closest to you, you're pretending like life's okay, and it's not okay.
I lived and slept next to this person who could do such a heinous crime. And I kept asking myself, were there signs? Did I know? Should I have known? Could I have stopped it?
True evil is really good at disguising itself, because that's why it surprises you.
He hid it well. He really did. So I was in complete shock.
I trusted this person. So there was guilt, there was shame.
Unfortunately, the advice at this point that Michelle received from including her family and the pastoral staff was to just forgive, try to move on, almost pretend that it hadn't happened. You know, it was just eating her alive.
Brian went to the church and had the uncomfortable opportunity, maybe, of confronting the pastoral staff and the elders and telling them that what they advised Michelle was wrong. All I remember that we wanted to do was to protect the kids. And so we advised her to get away from him immediately.
In October 2009, Darren was sentenced to 3 years probation. He was also ordered to register as a sex offender for 10 years in Pennsylvania. After the sentencing, Michelle notified supporters and parents of the gym that she had taken full ownership. One of the parents shared the letter with the local media, and suddenly the news was everywhere.
As a mother, I wanted to protect my clients just as I would my own children, just as I have my own children.
Michelle Cavanis revealed to parents that her husband and the former owner of Hand to Hand Youth Acrobatics Center is a registered sex offender.
I wanted to be honest and forthright with them. They have trusted me for the last 12 years, and I wanted to continue that trust.
Darren Cavanis was found guilty of sexually assaulting a 6-year-old boy in Pennsylvania earlier this year. Now, in the letter to parents, Michelle Cavanis states, upon learning of the charges in January, Hand to Hand immediately removed Darren from his responsibilities at the gym and suspended all his interactions with athletes and students.
Yeah, just from the get-go, I've done everything I could to protect my clients.
According to local news, Darren made a plea bargain to avoid more serious charges, and Ohio authorities extended his sex offender reporting requirements to 25 years. Today, in the United States, there are about 800,000 convicted sex offenders.
Those are just the ones that have been caught. I was the victim of pedophilia over the phone, and that was over the phone. The damage that it did to me, I also think was a contributor to my anorexia.
Every 9 minutes in the U.S., a child is sexually abused. And the offender is most likely to be a middle-aged white male.
And I really think we were the first ones to tell Michelle this wasn't going to work. She needed to get out. She needed to have some boundaries. This had been a complete destruction of the marriage. It had been mortally wounded.
As faithful as Michelle is, that was the last thing that she wanted.
Suddenly, Michelle was the sole breadwinner, but she found she couldn't keep running the gym. A friend looked at the financial records, which had been Darren's responsibility, and the picture was grim. The gym had lost many clients due to the Great Recession of 2008, when many people were losing their jobs and their homes. Fortunately, one of her clients offered to buy the gym, and then her focus shifted to looking for another home, a job, and a divorce. Michelle's real estate agent found a home in a smaller county nearby that wasn't selling. The owners offered to rent it to Michelle for just $1 per month. Meanwhile, Michelle wasn't finding a job anywhere.
Everyone was trying to help me, and I could not find a job. And I was really starting to sweat because now I'm a single mom with 4 children. How am I going to put food on the table?
Michelle had an English degree and knew that some private schools allowed applicants to teach without a license, as long as they agreed to get one.
So I was doing a lot of praying. I was also sending my resume all over the country to every single teaching job that I could find on the internet. And there was a job in a little tiny town in Colorado. It was a one-room school. Of course, I'm thinking, all right, I'm not qualified, but I do think I have something to offer because I have been coaching, which is kind of like teaching. I've been homeschooling, and I love kids.
More than 20 teachers had applied, and all had teaching credentials, except for Michelle. Somehow, she got an interview.
I would have given her a 0% chance of being hired.
Really, it was a courtesy interview because we had other resumes with teaching experience and certification.
Lonnie Hetterle was the Director of Education for the Rocky Mountain Conference of Seventh-day Adventists, and Diane Harris was the Assistant Director. Their role is to oversee the operation of more than 25 schools in northern New Mexico, Colorado, and Wyoming.
So I had picked out one of the other folks who have fully certified, experienced teacher, and I thought this would be a shoo-in. And as we listened to Michelle, she just came through with a vision, with you could sense her passion, spiritual walk. You could sense her love for kids.
She'd homeschooled her children, and one of the things that I try to impress upon all of our teachers is that we teach to ability, not to grade level. And she had so many instances of her own homeschool experience where she had been able to do that. And she had very specific, concrete examples.
And her openness and honesty inspired confidence.
We prayed and we looked at the candidates that we had interviewed. And with Michelle, it was unanimous that she was the one.
It was really interesting that we ended up offering the position to Michelle when I thought it was just not something that was even a possibility.
She can't do that, but we don't say that anymore about Michelle.
I remember the farewell party when she left here to go out to Colorado. She was driving out of our driveway. We were so proud of what she had accomplished by herself with her kids in Colorado. She became a principal of a school. How does that happen? But by the grace of God and the faith of somebody who does not let go.
When I feel like a mistake, just a weed in the garden, my mind plays tug of war. Am I worthy of love? Straining to reach the mark, never good enough. Then I try to remember. You are my defender, singing songs to my hurting heart. You quiet the tempest and fear, bringing me back to you, back to you.
That was one of the very, very best hires in my 20-some years of being superintendent in the Rocky Mountain Conference. God is in control, and He does what He wants, when He wants, and our job is simply to follow.
It was nice being able to have my teacher with me at all times, and I could be like, so about that assignment, what did you mean? Or like, what did you want with this? Or can you help me with this?
Obviously, I wouldn't trade that for anything. I had a great experience throughout all of my schooling leading up to high school, but we got no special treatment, and she made it very clear that we understood that she expected more of her own kids than other students.
I wanted to give them opportunities to give back, to understand that the purpose isn't just about receiving, but it's also about giving.
Mom made sure we were very active in the community.
We would run up and down the neighborhoods. We would put the bags on people's doors, like, hey, leave some canned food. And then, we would come along and pick up the different cans and stuff. I feel like Mom and I have always been very close, and so, yeah, we loved just getting to hang out, talk, and do cool adventures. We were going through a really hard time, and Mom especially, but she still made a point to make memories with us.
One of the hundreds of students that Michelle influenced during her 12 years as a teacher and principal was Samantha.
When I first walked into the classroom and met her, she smiled at me, and I think the first impression of her was that she had a beautiful smile, and she was really pretty. She wasn't someone to mess around with, but she also really deeply cared about her students, and I could definitely sense that.
Her mom worked with Michelle at the school and soon became one of Michelle's best friends.
Her kids and our daughter Sammy got along really good. They just lived their childhood lives to the fullest adventure possible when they got together.
When Michelle had to go on trips or when she would get blood transfusions, the boys would stay over at our house and we would have a blast.
One of my favorite times ever with our families together was at the church camp out in the mountains. And Michelle and I had long talks. We shared, like she would share with me a book she was reading, and then we'd talk about it and how much God is helping us women heal through things. And we could just talk. It was so easy to talk to Michelle. I don't have another friend like her.
Meanwhile, Michelle fell in love again and married Erwin, who became a positive role model for her boys. He was a successful CRNA who miraculously survived a stroke just a few years before he met Michelle. Erwin also supported Michelle in her career as a teacher and speaker.
But her fear separated her from the truth. And my question today is, what is keeping you separated from God's truth?
During this time, Michelle lost part of her vision after one of many procedures that attempted to lessen her nosebleeds. Her chronic disease, HHT, also caused complications in her liver, resulting in pulmonary hypertension. That is, high blood pressure in the arteries of the lungs and the right side of the heart, leading to heart failure. As a result, she may need a liver transplant. Michelle is one out of about 5,000 people that are born with HHT, a disease of abnormal blood vessels called AVMs. Only 10% of HHT patients have AVMs in their brain. Michelle now needed a second brain surgery, but she had other concerns. Her sister Beth had been battling breast cancer for years, just as their mother had.
I kept putting it off because Beth was deteriorating, and I wanted to make sure that I could be there for her. But they kept telling me I needed to have it removed because it was near my brainstem. And she said, "Michelle, don't you dare put that off for me." I was like, "Beth, are you sure? I don't..." And she just kept scolding me.
Jay and Ruth flew out to Colorado to join Erwin in supporting Michelle. Michelle's second brain surgery carried even more risk because the AVM was located near her brainstem. This is Michelle's actual brain AVM in 2016, before the surgeon removed it and cauterized or burned its feeder vessels to eliminate the risk of future bleeding.
Right after she got home from surgery, we learned that Beth was in the hospital and was dying.
It's like my worst fear came true.
We FaceTimed Beth as she was taking her last breaths.
We sang songs to her, we talked to her, and I remember sharing funny memories with her, and I could swear I saw a little smirk We were with her until her last breath on FaceTime.
I will never get that image out of my mind. Let's just say I had a lot of conversations with God over that one.
Beth was only 44 years old.
She was my best friend. We did everything together. It was almost like we were Siamese twins. The thing that made Beth and I so close is that we shared Jesus. That spiritual connection was like super glue. I wish I'd had more time with her. A lot of times I would love to call her up and have those chats we used to have, but she's another person that I can't wait to see in heaven.
Michelle continued to focus on her blessings, family, friends, and her love of teaching. One weekend in 2019, Erwin had gone to work, and Michelle laid down to take a nap.
I had a dream. In the dream, there was a train wreck, and I was on the train. I remember being really scared, and I looked out and I could see through the window of the train that the sun was shining in. I knew in that moment, I don't know how to explain it, but I knew God was saying to me, there's a train wreck coming, but I'm going to be like that sun. I'm going to be with you.
About an hour later, Michelle got a call from the hospital where Erwin worked.
And immediately I knew that God had warned me that something was about to happen, and it did. And my husband had a stroke at work. He had to be care flighted then to another hospital, a bigger hospital that had more facilities. And that was another day when, in 1 second, my world turned upside down. It was like living in a nightmare. I'm screaming and crying out to God, feeling honestly like he's abandoned me and my family.
Can she not catch a break?
God, hasn't she been through enough? Like, when's enough?
He spent the next 3 months in the hospital. He was not the same person, and he was extremely debilitated. His ability to communicate clearly, his ability to swallow, to walk, all of those things. He loved his work, he loved being a dad. Like every single thing that he loved to do was taken.
Despite his disability, Erwin wanted to film his journey to offer hope to families of stroke victims. For a while, it seemed he was getting better, but the recovery never came. After nearly 3 years of caregiving, along with her teaching career, motherhood, and managing her own medical issues, Michelle was spent.
I felt so out of control. I couldn't fix it for him. I couldn't fix it for my kids.
She really was in a bad, dark place. She was just having a really hard time.
Trying to be a teacher, a principal, a mom, and a caregiver, it was too much.
And I remember Michelle saying, I don't think I can do it anymore.
I knew that if I didn't make a change, I might not make it. Then what would happen to the people that were relying on me?
I remember looking at her thinking, it's time. That was the transition out of the classroom, but I don't think she will ever stop being an educator.
So I called my brother up and he said, Michelle, come home.
You have more support here, which is something she was lacking. That was the first time that I can recall my big sister reaching out to me, really and needing my help.
Casey made some calls and helped Michelle get an interview back in Ohio. She had 2 days to find a house and a job.
Any of the houses that I thought I would have liked were gone by the time I got here. I was offered a position at Kettering Health, and the next day, my sister and I went out again. I was frantically trying to find another house because I was leaving the next morning.
They found a newly listed home. It had handicapped bathrooms.
And she's like, Michelle, that's Casey's house, 3 doors down.
Though there were already several offers above asking price, Michelle's offer was asking price, with a letter to the owner explaining why she needed the house.
I was getting on the plane the next morning at like 7:30, and my sister called me and she said, you got it. Not only was the house ready to receive my husband, but it was 3 doors down from my brother. I mean, who orchestrates that? God again showed up in spades and provided more than I could have imagined.
In late 2021, Michelle moved with Erwin and her kids back to Ohio. Just a few months later, Erwin passed away from stroke complications. Like Michelle's mom, he was just 56 years old.
I definitely would not be the person that I am today without Dad. He taught us so much. Learning to be gentlemen, seeing how much he cared about and loves Mom. I just have these images in my head of them together, and I kind of pull those out sometimes, and I'm like, yeah, that's what I want to be for my wife,
I've seen your eyes, red with tears, your dignity trampled. I've heard your desperate cries, and it seems like endless years. Now in the darkness, lying on the bathroom floor, you feel hidden from me. You say I've passed you by, but have you not known? Have you not heard? I am the Lord, your maker. Look up, look up. Though the storms rise, do not fear. Look up, look up. I am with you always.
Michelle's ability to bounce back from adversity, to look upward and outward and trust that God has something better for her, keeps her going.
Though her heart was numb, Michelle stayed in touch with her family and went back to school to pursue a master's degree in organizational leadership. Meanwhile, her brother Kurt had risen in the ranks of the U.S. Air Force.
We would have conversations about leadership, things that we had been learning together as we were going through a similar journey as far as leadership and professional development. She developed a course that she then came out to a military base that I was at the time and taught a course for the entire base. What a proud moment that was for me. It was our worlds colliding in a way that was just so surreal and so incredible, and she had a big part of that. My success was molded a lot by watching her, working for her.
Michelle's son Grant often invited her to join him and his wife Ashley in their favorite workout. She continued getting quarterly iron infusions to replace the energy lost from daily nosebleeds.
Because some days it's just like trudging through wet sand to try to get through the day and to have enough energy to do what you need to do.
She also had surgery to stop bleeding in her stomach. In late 2023, I was working on a list of possible interviews for a talk show, and I reached out to Michelle to ask if I could add her to the list. I'd seen a video where she shared part of her life story.
But I was a competitive gymnast, and so my whole life was about trying to be better.
Probably a month before he reached out about the radio show, I remember praying, Lord, if you ever think that I would ever be in a relationship ever again, I have a request that they would want to dig through my boxes. So I have boxes in my garage that has lots of memorabilia, and also figuratively to want to intimately know me. When Chris Lang was communicating with me about this radio show, he said the words, hey, maybe we'll have to dig through some of your boxes to find some documents, memorabilia that will help tell your story. When he said those words, I almost felt like I was hit by lightning.
I can't wait to get into your story. The more I learned about Michelle's story, the more I knew it had to be more than just a talk show interview. As we talked and prayed together, something more happened. After more than 20 years of being a second-time single, I had found my soulmate. We married in September 2024.
From the beginning, you said that tough conversations can be safe when we remember we're on the same team.
When I first heard her belly laugh, and she actually thinks I'm funny for some reason.
And so I remember the first time I just was belly laughing when we were talking on the phone, and I started to feel hope. I started to feel joy again. I was so thankful for the friendship, for the aligned values and morals and passion for Jesus.
I'm so grateful that she opened her heart up to love.
Trusting that this is happening for a reason. This is driven by someone else. who is all-knowing and powerful and loves her.
She's as happy as she's ever been.
I really like this guy.
In spite of her health challenges, she dreamed of competing again in a new sport. Part of Michelle's workouts included outdoor 50-meter sprints, and she quickly found her new passion. She wanted to compete in the 2025 National Senior Games, but first she had to qualify at a state meet. Soon after she registered, she injured her Achilles tendon.
Well, since I hadn't run because I was injured, I did not even think about it.
In early 2025, she got an email stating that she'd qualified for the National Senior Games.
But I didn't want to be a cheater or to go to this event without letting them know. But I would still really love to compete.
Michelle told the national office,
and they're like, well, at one of the state games, next to the 50-meter event, somebody wrote a time down next to your name. So you're welcome to go ahead and come. I was going to the National Senior Games for my very first track meet.
Michelle had 3 months to get ready. She was learning most of her warm-up, training, and nutrition routines from social media videos and her physical therapist. Then one day, just 2 weeks before nationals, a young man walked up to us on the track. His name is Ben. He's a competitive sprinter on a college track team and offered to coach Michelle.
When she was in her form, she was moving like exactly how a track athlete looked. And I was like, oh, this isn't an athlete problem. This is just like a skills problem. And I could tell she was new and I wanted to help.
Hey, can we hire you for the next 2 weeks?
We started calling him Coach Ben. Within days, her 50-meter finish time was much faster by integrating his warm-ups and racing tips. Based on winning finish times in previous years, Michelle would likely be competitive in her age group.
To compete, to run a race, I think it's perfect. I think it's so fitting. The Olympic runner, when he says, I run for God's pleasure, right? That's her.
The National Senior Games is the largest qualified multi-sport event in the world for men and women age 50 and older. The 2025 host city was Des Moines, Iowa, with over 12,000 athletes participating in 25 events. Our hopes were high, even though Michelle had been dealing with some mysterious back pain.
My body was swelling. I was starting to feel just horrible.
It's been a long journey, lots of ups and downs, lots of downs lately. But I know God's going to be with me and give me the strength to finish the race strong.
I mean, we have tried everything.
Her back pain got worse. We had therapy tools and a heating pad, but nothing was helping.
Today is Tuesday,
July 29. Michelle was supposed to be at the practice field getting ready for tomorrow's race. Michelle had a very difficult night. She had pain that was extending around her back to the front. And we're just concerned that she has some organ issues with her liver and her heart.
I was so excited, and I thought, okay, this is the first time I get to do something in a long time that I can use my body and my physical talents and do something new. I was learning a new sport, and it was just fun, and I wanted to do it for the glory of God. It's really hard not to feel like this is my lot in life. Just have horrible things happen all the time. You always feel like you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. Because when things are going well, it's hard to fully lean into the good things because you're just waiting for something bad to happen.
Michelle's intense training resulted in exacerbation of pulmonary hypertension from HHT, an inflamed gallbladder, and shingles, which caused her extreme back pain. She got a shot of anti-inflammatory drugs and was discharged. Two hours later, her nose started bleeding and wouldn't stop. The anti-inflammatory drugs are blood thinners and are not recommended for HHT patients. Back in the ER, we learned that she had lost 2 units of blood in just the last few hours, and there was only one solution to stop the bleed.
I guess they thought I needed something, so they gave me this rhino rocket.
A rhino rocket is a nasal packing device used to manage nosebleeds.
Most people don't see this side of what I go through, but this is very real part of my life. And when your pain is at a 10 and you would just rather someone put you out, it's really hard to keep your faith.
I made it over to the track just in time for the 50-meter finals in Michelle's age group. Based on her fastest practice time, Michelle would have finished in 4th place.
Of course, I had a little pity party. You know, I was crying and disappointed. This race, oh my word, it's so temporal, and absolutely I am allowed to feel disappointed, and God's not taking that away from me at all. I'm allowed to be angry, all the emotions. It's okay. I'm allowed to feel those things. We always want an answer. Okay, why did this happen? Let me figure it out. We're not always going to know the answers, and we might not ever. But because of that daily walk and talk and relationship with Jesus, I trust him that somehow he will work it for my good. The battle right now is for our souls, and it's an eternal battle. I'm going to trust him, and I'm going to keep praising him. Again, it's not easy, and last night I was not doing a great job at that, and I just want to be real that we're not always going to be in that place, but we need to always go back to that place if we want to have hope. I want to keep training. I want to keep racing. If my doctor says it's safe, and I can keep doing that. But the biggest thing is I want to serve God and all that I do, and doing that in a way that will serve the people around me. I want to love people, and I want to share with them this amazing God that we serve, and to show them that they can have hope too in this crazy, disappointing, discouraging, angry world.
That's why Michelle has excitement and is happy, because she knows this opens up a door for her to share God's love and being able to get through something where someone else is struggling.
I remember talking to her about all of my hardships that I was going through and asking her to pray for me, because she knows what it's like to have a hard day and she knows what it's like to have a rough life.
She's been an encouragement to us as we watch what she's gone through and how she's stayed genuinely positive and believe that God's going to see her through.
You know, some people have some little smidgen of what Michelle went through and they turn their backs on God and blame him. Michelle never did that.
I remember going to the hospital and going to visit her, and she, even with the brain surgery and the bandages, she still was so incredibly certain that this was part of God's plan.
Through our human weakness, God is strong. That's what you see in Michelle's life.
If you're going to talk the talk, you better walk the walk. She walks it every single day.
She's inspirational, always pointing to her Savior.
I think that's something that she's definitely passed on to me for sure, is that hope and the assurance that even when the bad stuff happens, in the end, God's going to work it out.
I was pretty sure that I knew how this film would end, celebrating the culmination of Michelle's hard work on the track. Instead, we were heading home to have doctors remove her rhino rocket and her gallbladder. Every day, I see the way she frames what happens to her through the eyes of faith. She's still running a race, the most important race of all.
God also promises us peace, and peace is a gift. I may not understand, I may not like what happens. What I do have every day is a choice. Just like in gymnastics, it's kind of like get back up off the mat, get back on the beam, and do it again.
I cannot wait to see how God uses her as he has always done. It's like in the middle of her story, which is crazy to say because there's so much already.
Morning by morning, food on the table, a Bible in my lap, promises of plenty covering all my needs. Your unmistaken love present before I was like rivers of grace, drenching